This is Dirshu Mishnah Berurah. We are going to learn Simin Chav Vav today, and as well begin Simin Chav Zayin Sif Aleph. So let's begin with Simin Chav Vav, which deals with, as the Mechaber himself coins the Simin, Din Mi She'ein Lo Ela Tefila Achas. What does one do if he only has one Tefilin? Plural of tefillah is tefillin. If you only have one, either shel yad or shel roish. So says the Mechaber, Amein lo ela tefillah achas, meniach isa sheyesh lo mevarich la. Do what you could do. You have one, put it on and make a bracha. Why shekol achas mifna bifnei atzma? Each and every one is a mitzvah by itself. Continues the Mechaber, v'hu adin, and the same is true. Im yesh lo shteyem, if you have both of them. Says the Mechaber, it's not only if you only have one. Let's say you have both. You have a tefillin shel yad, you have a tefillin shel rosh, but for some reason, as we will see, you can only put on one. Still, you put it on, sheyachal, that which you're able to do. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkatan Aleph, Shum Oines Kigoin. Explains the Mishnah Berurah, Sheish Lamarka B'Roishaya B'Izroi. You have a makkah on your head or on your arm, and for some reason you can't put it on your tefillin. Perhaps someone has a cast all the way up. Perhaps someone has some sort of terrible cut or gash on the whole forehead, so he can't put it on. So you do what you could do. Continues Mishnah Berurah. Let's say you need to go on the road, and the caravan is not going to wait for you. You're going to miss your flight, and you don't have time to put on both tefillin. Do what you could do. Of course, the flight is a bit of an extreme example. The shayara is a little bit more common. Back Bizman Chazal, the caravan is not waiting, so you do what you can do. Put on one, make the bracha, and that's all. Let's say you have a choice. Which one is better, says the Mishnah Berurah. Some say the shel roish is better. Why? It has more kedusha. Some say no. You only can do one, put on the shel yad. Why? You're not changing the order. The Torah says shel yad and then shel roish. So if you have a choice, do shel yad, because that's the order of the Torah. So we have two opinions. But explains the Mishnah Berurah very important. Means you can put on one now, and then on the road you'll put on the other one. Afterwards, you're not going to be able to put on the second one. You got to put on both. Says Mishnah Berurah, don't think that because the caravan's leaving, you're missing your flight. You can chas v'shalom be mevatel the mitzvah tefillin. No, we're discussing here. You can put on one now, and you'll put on one soon. So what do? Shel roish comes first, it's more kedusha. Shel yad comes first because it's more first in the Torah. But if that's not the option, and it's either now or never, then it's now. It's not never. Is not an option. You're not allowed to miss tefillin because you need to go on a journey. Continues the Mechaber. Actually, before we see the Mechaber and Sif Beis, let's take a moment and see the Dirshu over here. That Dirshu points out in note number 2 that what does it mean? A makkah that Pati used from tefillin. We'll see later on in Simon Chav Zayin. And now, why did we say in the Mishnah Berurah that the tefillin shel roish is more kadosh? The Shulchan Aruch at Siman Beis is going to teach us is because the roiv of the shim shakai, the shim, the dalet, and the yud is on the shel roish, and Mishnah Berurah over there in Siman Mem Beis is going to explain because you have the shin on the tefillin, and the dalet on the knot, and the shel yad. All you have is the kesher of the yud. And in Siman Beis, we can get involved in where in different parts of the tefillin we have different remazim of the shakai. Some people make their hand on their arm, they wrap the tefillin around 3 times like a shin. But that's the reason, explains Mishnah Berurah, that the tefillin shel roish is more chamer. Continues the Dirshu over here, note number 4. But let's say you're going to miss the man Kriya Shema. So Be'er Halacha explains that if you only have one tefillin, you should wait until you have the second tefillin before you say Kriya Shema. Going back over here to Sif Beis in Simin Chav Vav, says the Mechaber, if you're only putting on the shel roish, what bracha do you make? Mevarich ala al mitzvahs levad, you make the bracha of al mitzvahs tefillin. because that's the bracha on the Shal Rosh. Says the Ramah, as everyone anticipates, I go as the Ramah already taught us that the basic minhag Ashkenaz baring Chasidim and Sfardim. What do? They make the minhag is to make 2 brachos. So what do you do on just the Shal Rosh? Mivarich al Shal Rosh levad 2 brachos. You make 2 on the Shal Rosh. Miniach Shal Yad levad. Mavarich laniach levad. And if you're just putting on the Shal Yad, you make just the Shal Yad. So the Ramah says on the Shal Yad you make laniach, on the Shal Rosh you make both. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if got them easily done the Naigin Kamosha Ma'arnu B'Simon Chafei, as you've already learned, Mishnah Berurah, if got the Lamed Ayin Sham. Mavarich laniach. If you just put on the Shal Yad, you make laniach. Ayin B'Ri Megadnu Shevi Yitzin in the sphere Lu Daval. The af al shal yad levan namirach shtei brachos. Says the Bri Megadim, even on the shal yad you make 2 brachos. Ula halacha, says Mishnah Berurah, what's up? Zak halacha is kimo achrayim. De'enoi mevarich al shal yad elo laniach levad. If you're putting on just the shal yad for whatever which extenuating circumstance, you only make laniach. De'belavach yabri yishadim svirlu dafilu al shteim nami enovarich halacha. Says Mishnah Berurah, simple calculation, because many poskim hold, as the Mechaber, the Shulchan Aruch himself holds, you only make 1 bracha always. So now on the Shal Yad, if there is an opinion to make both, no, you only make 1 bracha on the Shal Yad. Let's see, you put in your tefillin that a bracha that din. Who divar kozmanche. And as we've learned that this is a mitzvah nimshachas, as long as you're wearing the tefillin similar to your tzitzis, you make a bracha on it. Explains the Mishnah Berurah. Let's say you messed up and you said the bracha on shal rosh shal mitzvah and then laniach. Don't say it again. If you, as we've already seen this halacha, you should make the brachas in order as well. First comes the bracha laniach, and then comes the bracha of al mitzvah tefillin. Now we're going to go into Simon Chav Zayin, which is going to deal with the Makayim Hanachasan Va'oifan Hanachasan, the place of putting on your tefillin and the way to put on your tefillin. And of course, we're going to have some beautiful diagrams, pictures, courtesy of the Mishnah Berurah, Pierre Halacha, absolutely incredible to depict what we're talking about. So says the Machaber, Makam Hanachasan Shal Yad B'Zraya Small. Number 1, which hand do you put your tefillin on? The left hand. On the muscle over the bone. Shebein hakubdoi ubeis hashachi, between the kubdoi and the beis hashachi, the armpit. So on the muscle over here is where your tefillin is going to go. Number 1. So number 1 was left hand. Number 2 was on the muscle. Number 3 is viyata tefillin ma'at letzadakov. You want to angle the tefillin a little downward towards your body. So when you put your hand down, you connect it liba, it's going to be opposite your heart. So the litmus test to know if your tefillin are angled the right way, not if they're on the right place, that we'll see in a moment, but the angling is you put your hand down and the tefillin should be facing directly your heart. Says the Ramah, got to put it on the end of the bone that's closest to the kubdai, but not on the half that is closer to the shechi, the armpit. This is where Dirshu's calendar stops. This is where we're going to stop. We'll see a picture for this in a moment, but the Ramah just taught us something very important. Not only does it have to be on the muscle, it has to be on the lower half of the muscle. We'll call it the part of the muscle closer to your elbow and not closer to your armpit. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Sivkat and Aleph, why your left hand, as many people know, but Yadacha, Pirish of what does Yadacha teach us? Yad Keha, your weaker hand, Tainu Asma, which is your left hand, Shitesha V'Koicha, which is weak. And of course, this is where we learn out, this is where we learn out that if your right hand is your weaker hand, meaning you're a lefty, you put on your right hand. Darshu says Mishmur another pasuk. You write with your right hand. The normal way of writing is with your right hand. So you tie with your right hand. So if you're tying with your right, so 2 reasons why we put tefillin on the left hand. Yad keha, your weaker hand. Number 2, you write, you tie with your right hand. So what are you tying it on to? Your left hand. Let's say you put on the wrong hand. then even Midiavi you're not Yaitse. Of course, if one is a lefty, that's not what he's referring to. Chazal, it's learned that from a pasuk, so the placement is ikuva, very, very important. Which is your elbow. So we're learning that it's on the muscle, the part that is raised between the elbow and the armpit, towards the bone. Explains Mishnah Berurah of God and Daled Roisha at a mamish. Doesn't mean all the way at the end of the bone by your elbow. Because there the muscle goes down, and it's not going to be on the part that goes down. Until the part that goes up, tefillin. So again, another litmus test if your tefillin's on the right place. Your tefillin cannot be on the part of your arm that is now raised, not on the non-muscle. The muscle's where the arm raises. The part that dips down, your tefillin's not allowed to be on. Kibayris is not called the kibayris. The raised part. Says Mishnah Berurah, the Ramah is not saying a chiddush. What's the chiddush of the Ramah when he concludes that it can't be on the half closer to the armpit? Explains the Mishnah Berurah. That's the chiddush, because that's part of your muscle. So the second half of your muscle closer to your armpit is still part of the muscle. It's part of the raised part. That's the chiddush of the Ramah that can't be there. Says Mishnah Berurah, the Mechaber agrees it has to be in the lower half, as we'll see. Means on the lower half. The goin is masking that the entire muscle is kasha. So the Mishnah Berurah is explaining us something very important. The part underneath the muscle, that's for sure puzzle everyone holds. Perhaps a bit higher is not, but lower everyone holds this puzzle. And this is where the Mishnah Berurah says one should not have too big tefillin, which are too big. Why? If you have big tefillin, it's going to be falling off of your muscle into that dipped down part, which is no good. It says Mishnah Berurah, unless you put it higher up. So this is why the Mishnah Berurah does not like large tefillin. Of course, many people know that the meaning of a Chabad and others is to have large tefillin. And what we're learning over here is what's most important is it cannot be too low. It's better to be high than to be low. And of course, this also has to do with the size of a person. If someone is a bigger person, he has a larger arm, he has a larger muscle, he has more room for tefillin. A little 13-year-old bar mitzvah boy has a smaller arm, smaller muscle, smaller room for tefillin. But Gamzeh says, it's not lechatchila to make it too high. Because the Ramah and the Mechaber, oh, that's not good. That's all you have. Taiv Yoiser says Mishnah Berurah, put it higher up. On the place that is found, that dying. It's still part of the muscle. That's like at least the Gra and the other Paiskim are happy. And not for it to be too low. So before we see the pictures, let's get the sheetais in order. Actually, you know what? We'll do it together with the pictures. Here you see a beautiful picture of your left hand, and you see on your left hand the muscle and the bones that we are discussing. This is the etzem. This is the, one more time. This is the Bogen, this is your elbow. Here is your Beis HaShachi, which is your armpit. This is the big muscle, the bone, the etzem that we're discussing. And basically the entire Mishnah Berurah taught us that your tefillin has to be on this muscle part, this raised area, not over here. This is one area you do not want it. This area right over here, which is where it dips down, you do not want it. We'll actually can make that a big X over there for simplistic purposes. We do not want it over there. You want it on the muscle. And now this is the point. We're just going to draw on this picture before we go to the other pictures. This is the point that the Mishnah Berurah said is a machlokes. Is that if we take this muscle and we split it down the middle, well, that was a bad split, We split it down the middle. There we go. That's a little bit better. So this is the lower half of the muscle. This is the upper half of the muscle. The Mishnah Berurah taught us that on the lower half of the muscle, that's l'chatchila, that's the Ramah, that's the Machaber, that's the right place to put your tefillin. On the upper half of the muscle, the Goyin said and the Prisha said it's allowed to be on the upper half of the muscle. So now let's do math. Everyone holds it can't be on the under the muscle, where the X is on your picture over here. So definitely don't put it too low. Says the Mishnah Berurah, if you have big tefillin, what should you do? Certainly make sure it's not too low. What should you do? Make it higher up, because at least the Vilna Gaon and the Brisha hold that's okay. It's true that the Mishnah, the Ramah, and the Machaber don't hold that's okay. But still, at least there are some shitas. Always you want to make sure if one has large tefillin or one has a small hand, certainly the first detail to make sure is that tefillin shouldn't be too low, because not everyone holds this puzzle. Once it's not too low, then the lechatchila is on the lower half of the muscle. Let's continue over here. This is showing you again the muscle that we are discussing. Over here you have the tefillin shel yad, the tefillin shel rosh, and here's where we see that you don't want it to have even ksas of the tefillin. As you see, a little bit piece of the tefillin here is too low. Over here as well, you see that this little bit of the bottom of the tefillin is angling down, and that's also not good. Even a bit of it off is a problem. Here you have that you put on your tefillin, and as we said, what is the litmus test? That when you put your hand down, the tefillin are angled towards your heart. And here you have the Ramah that we just explained. Here he breaks it up so nicely. So let's just utilizing these pictures for one more moment for perfect clarity. Here you see the Gimel, the Dalet is the two halves. The two halves of the muscle, and we'll say that in the Dalet, this area is l'chatchila according to all opinions, and this Gimel area, that's where the Goyin and the Prisha said it is okay. But everyone holds that if it's angled the lower over here, everyone holds that is not okay. And this is again in the part here labeled Aleph. Everyone holds is no good. The base is the proper area. And finally, over here is where he's showing you that if you have big tefillin, it's better for it to be on the upper half that's angling, and it's more towards the upper half, because then at least you're yaitzer according to some opinions. And this is the Bir Halacha that we're not going to have time to talk about right now. Beautiful skeletal picture in going through all the different parts. Those who learn the Bir Halacha, you'll have the picture now. And Amir Tashem, we'll pick it up from here in the next year. B'siyata d'shmaya. Apologies on the lateness of today's year.